Am I the a-hole for dropping my uncle's affair partner's name at dinner after he tried to shame me? I'm female 20. My uncle, my father's brother, is 37. I remember when I was a kid, he used to bring a different girl every time he visited us. Not that often, I'll admit. Until he suddenly stopped visiting a few years. I was a teenager at the time, so I had no idea what was going on with him until he came home for my dad's birthday. Dad didn't like it, but he let him in. That night, my dad explained that my uncle was a serial cheater and had stopped coming over after I called him out on his behavior, and he didn't like it. But this time he seemed to have changed, but will not be involved in my uncle's business again. Well, my uncle got married and made a happy home with his new wife. Until last year when my uncle invited me to watch a movie in the theater. But he wasn't alone. He had a girl with him who wasn't his wife, who we'll call Macy. I was too afraid to ask about it, but he talked to me alone and told me not to tell anyone about her. Except that I told my father. He was disappointed, but told me to mind my own business and that he no longer cared what my uncle did. So on Easter, we had dinner with my family. I brought my boyfriend, male 20. We have been dating for a few months. One thing you should know is that I've dated a girl before. My uncle knows this and makes jokes about it at my expense. He came to dinner with his wife, and during the night he made fun of me. At one point, he looked at my boyfriend and said to him, "You need to ask her for a group activity before she does one without you, mate." I was shocked, and everyone at the table went silent. Even my grandma, who always made snide comments about everything, didn't know what to say. I was embarrassed and annoyed, so I said, "So uncle, how's Macy?" His wife asked, "Who's Macy?" He tried to say, "Nobody, I don't know." But I replied, "But we went to the movies together last year. She looked nice." His wife looked at me like if looks could kill, and she said we're leaving, and they just left like that. Later, my uncle texted me about how immature that was. It was none of my business to get involved, and now he had to factory reset his phone because his wife will not stop asking to see his phone unlocked, and is still bothering him about it. He also found my boyfriend's Instagram and DM'd him, "Dude, control your bitch." I'm pretty offended. He never insulted me before. My father told me that I should have minded my own business because he would never learn, and what I did would not teach him anything. My boyfriend, however, has done nothing but praise me for my pettiness. I'm kinda regretting it because seems like I launched a nuke, and I wasn't ready for the fallout. Am I the a-hole? Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. That was an awesome move. Next time, uncle should learn how to keep his mouth shut. If his wife asks you about Macy, don't lie. Also, I would like to add that when he brought the affair partner around, he made it OP's business. What kind of a-hole does that? Oh right, one that cheats on his partners. Why the heck would he take you somewhere with his affair partner? He's too stupid to get away with it. If his wife didn't find out like this, I'm sure she would have found out some other way. Not the a-hole. My dad literally took me to McDonald's to meet this woman he was cheating on my mom with. Cheaters are dumb. When my mom got home, I told her right away. My dad took my little brother to help clean the apartment he was moving into, without my mom's knowledge. My brother told our mom literally as soon as they walked in the door at home. Lol. Not the a-hole. You never owe a cheater loyalty. He cheated in front of you, likely used you as a cover, and had the indecency to shame you in front of your partner and family. Honestly, he deserves anything he gets. Not to mention messaging her boyfriend and calling her the B-word. This is not how you treat family. He's a prick, not the a-hole. Next story. Am I the a-hole for exposing my half-sister's lies about our childhood? I, 24 female, have a half-sister, 27 female. We'll call her Taylor. My dad had weekend visitation with Taylor at our house until I was 8, and it was the worst. She bullied me really badly anytime I saw her, to the point that I would scream every time my dad even mentioned her coming over. Even if we were kept apart, she would break my things, upset my pets, and tell lies about me. Every week, her mom would end up in the kitchen screaming at my parents. Taylor's mom died when I was 11. Her mom didn't have any family able to take her in, and neither did my dad. My dad was the only one who could get custody. When I was told about this, I freaked out. Screaming, crying for hours, calling my grandparents and demanding to live with them. All of it. My mom wasn't willing to have Taylor in the house on that basis. And I'm pretty sure she said she would move out if my dad pushed the issue. Taylor ended up being sent to boarding school the next year, and she would go stay with the other members of my dad's family during breaks. When I was 14, my parents divorced and I would see Taylor every few months at my dad's during school breaks. I'd learned to stand up for myself, and she'd grown up, so there was no more bullying, though we'd bicker. She was hostile and I never backed down. I didn't see her much after she went to college, and then I went to college far away as well. We now live in the same small city. I moved here in March. It's the kind of place where everyone from each generation knows of each other. I've never encountered Taylor socially and never mentioned knowing her, but I had met her boyfriend, and his friends are part of my larger social group. The other night I was at a party, and Taylor and her boyfriend were there as well. We made eye contact and waved, but she pretty much avoided me all night. During the night, our mutual friends asked how I know Taylor, and I said we are half-sisters. They all looked super uncomfortable, so I pressed for an explanation. Basically, Taylor's been telling everyone that she was homeless as a kid because her stepmother and half-sister hated her and demanded she be shipped off to boarding school and made her dad ignore her. Were it not for the fact that it was obviously going to come out sooner or later that we are related, I probably wouldn't have bothered to set the record straight. As it was, I'm going to be around these people for a long time, and I didn't feel I should have had to walk around burdened by the weight of her lies. So I told the group the context. She called me yesterday to yell at me. Apparently, she's being ostracized from the group. Her relationship is in trouble, her career opportunities are in jeopardy, etc. I don't see how any of this is my fault, because she's the one who lied. But according to some people, I should have been a bit gentler in my retelling of the facts, because it's her experience, and I've basically blackballed her. Edit: I didn't have space for this, but just to clarify what I actually said to my friends. I explained that the reason my mom didn't want Taylor to live with us was because of the bullying, and that when they split, my dad still didn't have Taylor live with him, and that I only stayed with him on weekends. But Taylor told them I moved in with my dad so that she couldn't. I also told them it wasn't true that I told my dad not to finance Taylor's business when she was 20, because I didn't. That was pretty much the gist of it. My mom didn't say to send her to boarding school. What my mom said was, Taylor is not living in this house with my daughter. If that means we split, then we split. My dad didn't want to be a full-time parent by himself, so he stayed with my mom. And since he didn't have any other family Taylor could live with for various reasons, he sent her to boarding school. My dad never cut contact with Taylor. He visited her at school that was about an hour away, and sometimes he'd see her at other relatives' places during school breaks. When he moved out, Taylor would occasionally spend a day, and maybe one break a year at his place. Everyone sucks here. Her account of being homeless because her stepsister and stepmother hated her and wouldn't allow her in their home was essentially the truth. The adults in that situation should have done much more to create a better situation for you both. You didn't deserve to be bullied or terrorized in your own home, but she was young, clearly had awful parenting, and she needed more too. Realizing you didn't look great according to Taylor's account, I definitely think you handled it poorly. You moved to her city, joined up with her friend group, and when telling your side of the story en masse, you should have been more gentle and even perhaps more neutral, acknowledging you were both children when all this went down. Honestly, despite sounding like a bit of a craphead as a kid, I really feel bad for Taylor, because she was by all accounts abandoned by her family, and is now on the outs from a large friend group. The dad should have left Opie's mother the moment she made him choose between his daughters. That way, he could have the girls in separate times and work on helping Taylor the way she needed, but he chose the easy way out. Opie's mom did the right thing by protecting her daughter. Not the a-hole. For someone to entirely reverse their decision about a person based on the story of a stranger they've just met, that's a big deal. It feels like it wasn't actually a surprise. For it to have had as big an impact as to upset work opportunities over hearsay. She's probably been tending to a garden of red flags for a while. Her sister was that one friend that no one really likes, but pities too much to end a friendship. Opie just enabled the friends to get over their pity, and they no longer had any reason to maintain the friendship. Next story. Am I the a-hole for not pushing my family to include my fiancé in Christmas card photos? I, 37 male, am engaged to my fiancé, 31 female, planning on getting married at the end of this year. My family takes a Christmas card photo every year, usually around big events like graduations or parties when everyone is together, which isn't often. Years ago, my mom instituted a not until you married policy to include significant others in photos and applied that rule to my brother when he was dating and engaged to his now wife. My fiancé has had significant issues with this. Last year, when the family took photos shortly after she and I were engaged, she directed many snide comments to me about how excluded she feels. This year, she flatly refused to drive with me to a family graduation, saying how hurt and excluded she felt by this policy. Since we are getting married this year and the card is coming out the year we are getting married. I've tried to explain that this isn't our card. This isn't our right to tell others who can and can't be on their card, and we could always have our own card to start our own tradition. She made several comments around how surprised she is that I haven't stood up for her to my mother, even telling me that she's discussed the issue with others, and they also are surprised that I wouldn't take a stand with my mother on this. She also made a point multiple times to say, "Good, less time to spend in photos with them at the wedding," implying a tit-for-tat response to this policy. I don't really know what to do. Am I the a-hole? Your mother is very wise. Your fiancé is a bit of a main character, isn't she? Wow, and she's already planning retaliation at your wedding? Dude, you may seriously want to rethink things here. These are red flags, and her behaving like an entitled child is going to cause some serious friction now and later. You are not a-hole, but your fiancé definitely is and needs serious help. Edited to Ed, read some of your other posts. OP, you need to run. So many red flags. Just run. To those of you defending the fiancé, check OP's post history. It explains the general reaction, "Oh my god, no, don't do it." Mom's rule may be a bit prescient. Exclude fiancé, fiancé gets pissy, son sees fiancé is pissy, wedding is called off, fiancé never becomes family, rule vindicated. Mom's rule is in fact a test. Honestly, this is the easiest mom test I've ever heard of. If this woman can't suck it up about being included on someone else's Christmas card for a year or two, God help the man who marries her. I get the rule when someone is dating, but if you're engaged, it does feel a little harsh. My family isn't exactly super open with other people in our photos either, but I think this is pretty rude, so soft you're the a-hole. Meh, some people use the word engaged pretty loosely. Sometimes it's an excuse to live together without setting a date. I get that OP has firm plans for the end of the year, but plans change. Married is an arbitrary line, but at least it is easy to determine. OP is correct that is not his Christmas card and not his rule. He could have not gone to the graduation this year, and in that way avoided a photo perhaps, but then is dissing to graduate for no good reason, as she did. You are not a-hole. I get why your mom put this rule in place years ago. The last picture of my kids with my great-grandmother has my brother's ex-girlfriend in it, and they were about to get engaged. Your mom didn't make this rule new for your fiancé, so I don't know why she would be so upset by it. Is she being excluded in other ways? Last story. Am I the a-hole for not letting my sister use the family property for her upcoming wedding? I'm 25, my sister is 29. I also have a younger sister, 8. When I was 14, my mom sent me to live with her parents. Her excuse was that they needed me to help out. I believe she just didn't want to deal with a growing male teen. My grandparents own an amazing property in the mountains that has an amazing view. We also have some horses and other critters. They were also quite wealthy as well. They both passed 4 years ago, a month apart. They gave me the property because I would appreciate and respect it more, while my mom and sisters got money and other assets which was overall valued more than the property. In the past 4 years, I turned part of the property into a venue for mainly weddings. Grandparents knew of this idea and thought it was a good one. We are busy and usually booked about 8 months out. My sister got engaged 1.5 years ago and said she wants to get married at a property. I said sure, just let me know the date as soon as possible so I can make sure it is booked. I never got a date. I followed up several times and kept asking her and she would just brush me off. Then 2 weeks ago, I got the wedding invitation, stating the property is the location and the date, which is in September of this year. I immediately called her to say that we are booked for that date and can't accommodate her. Well, now her, my mom, other family, her partner's family, as well as other flying monkeys, have been blowing up on me. They're also calling and writing reviews for my business. I asked them to stop and called my sister telling her that literally all she had to do was tell me when she knew her date so I could block it, and I would take care of everything else. But she went off on how I am ruining her day, that it's our family's property. How she already sent out the invitations and couldn't go back now, that I should just tell the other couple to cancel, because family's more important. The couple have been on the books for over a year now, and I actually like them. After the last big blow up, I started communicating strictly through the business, using our recorded line as well as email. I suggested 3 other dates around the same time, but that's not good enough. They just say I'm being resentful and an a-hole. Not the a-hole, but your sister's a giant a-hole for expecting you to cancel another couple's date for, what, selfish family? She just needed to tell you the date and didn't. That's on her. Who the heck sends out invitations for a date before even contacting the venue? Not a-hole. I was all ready to read a story about OP saying no or fighting a family versus individual ownership and some personal drama. But there's none of that. It is really as simple as sending an invite for a date without even asking the venue. I just don't understand how people can be so consumed in their own weddings. So thankful my wife was not like this. It reminds me of the people who just decided to have a wedding at a mansion without telling the owners, sent invites, and showed up on the day claiming they had a right because they prayed for it or something. Wacky. Not the a-hole. I would suggest getting a lawyer involved before your family causes harm to your business. Send them all cease and desist letters. This is your property and business. Do not allow them to discredit it just because they are not getting their way. I'd also put a PSA out that our wedding will not be at your venue. That way, a bunch of people don't show up and ruin this other lovely couple's wedding by causing a scene. One thing I have learned is you never mix family and business. Family will never respect your business because they feel entitled to it. So it's best to not only offer family a small discount, but still make them go through all the proper channels, or they don't get whatever service you provide.